Good morning, Calabasas Cougars. I hope you're having a great day. My name is Susan Faubion, and I am on the school board for Santa Cruz Valley Unified School District, and I am so happy to be able to read to you this morning. I am going to read to you a story about Helen Keller. This is a true story. She was a real person who lived from 1880 until 1968. She was both blind and deaf, and it's a fascinating story. I hope you enjoy it. The woman whose disabilities would later make her world famous was born a healthy, hearing, and sighted baby in Alabama in 1880. The eldest child born to Captain Arthur Henley and Kate Keller, Helen spent the first year of her childhood in a home surrounded by gardens. She was a curious and intelligent child who was said to have a vocabulary of several words before her first birthday. One of those words was water. When Helen became gravely ill with a high fever, the family doctor feared the worst. However, Helen began to recover after several days, and her parents were thrilled that in spite of their fears, Helen was not going to die. But though Helen became strong again, she seemed different. Her mother soon realized the source of the change. The illness they called a brain fever had left Helen completely deaf and blind. Only 19 months old, young Helen Keller was in an unreachable prison. In the 19th century, gravely handicapped children such as Helen were usually institutionalized, sent away for life to a hospital or asylum. It is likely that Kate Keller was expected and even advised to send Helen away to such a place. She would not or could not do it. Helen remained at home, living a wild and unmannered existence while her parents sought help. There was no medical solution for Helen, but one doctor gave them some very valuable advice. He knew of another child who was blind and deaf like Helen. Her name was Laura Bridgman, and she had been taught to read and to write. If one such child could be educated, perhaps Helen could as well. The doctor advised the Kellers to seek the advice of an expert on the education of the deaf, an inventor named Alexander Graham Bell. Bell was famous for his invention of the telephone, but his life's work had become educating the deaf through the teaching of lip reading and speaking methods using a series of symbols called visible speech. He directed the family to the Perkins Institution of Boston, where Laura Bridgman had been educated. There, a young, partially blind woman had recently graduated her course of studies and was ready to seek employment. Her name was Annie Sullivan, and with the school's recommendation, the Kellers hired her immediately. Helen Keller later described March 3rd, 1887, as the most important day she remembered in all her life. It was the day Annie Sullivan arrived to teach her. Their first meeting did not go well. 6-year-old Helen was defiant and violent, but the teacher was no shrinking violet. With her physical strength, determination, and patience, Miss Sullivan was more than a match for Helen. Her first major victory was teaching the reluctant student to display proper table manners at meals. But even this victory paled in comparison to Miss Sullivan's next accomplishment. Through exhaustive repetition and daily reinforcement, Helen one day came to understand that the word water being spelled into her hand was a symbol for the real water running from the pump. As Helen herself described it, it was the moment her soul was set free. With the door to communication unlocked, Helen learned at an astonishing rate. By the age of 8, Helen could understand more than 900 words, could write could write using a special stencil writing board, and could absorb all the works of literature Miss Sullivan spelled into her hand. Clearly, she had an enormous intellect, and always she was eager to learn more. One of her greatest desires was to attend college. Together, Helen and Miss Sullivan attended classes to prepare for the rigorous college examination. Even for a healthy sighted and hearing girl, a college education was not expected or even encouraged. The education of women focused more on the domestic realm, and a woman pursuing higher education was considered eccentric at best. For a blind and deaf girl, it seemed an outrageous proposition. But Helen and Miss Sullivan both possessed a steely determination. Since most textbooks were not available in the raised braille print for the blind, Miss Sullivan spelled the books to Helen. In addition, Miss Sullivan attended all of Helen's classes, sitting alongside her student and translating the lessons into sign language in Helen's hand. The work paid off, and Helen passed her entrance examinations. 4 years later, Helen graduated from Radcliffe College, the first deaf and blind person ever to do so. This was only the beginning for Helen. There was a great deal that she wanted to accomplish. While still at Radcliffe, she had written a memoir, and she would continue to write articles and books for much of her life. She toured the country with Miss Sullivan, making appearances and presentations in an effort to educate others about blindness and deafness. By this time, she was famous throughout the country and much of the world. Though Helen Keller was utterly devastated by the death of Annie Sullivan in 1936, she nonetheless remained committed to speaking, writing, and educating on the subjects of deafness and blindness. And she was a key member of the American Foundation for the Blind, raising funds and constantly searching out new methods of helping others, particularly those who, like her, were deaf blind. Helen died in 1968 at the age of 87. The urn containing her ashes was laid to rest next to Annie Sullivan. Thank you so much for allowing me to read to you. I hope you enjoyed that story. Have a terrific day.